And I'm Bryan.
And we're here to talk to you about human trafficking.
All right.
What are some of the types of trafficking in the U.S.?
Some of the types of trafficking in the U.S. we have, it's defined by sex and labor trafficking. Sex trafficking is definitely going to be more of prostitution related, massage parlors, things like that. And then your labor trafficking, a lot of times they're going to be found on farms. It's kind of your historical definition of slavery. People that are working for no pay, but they're forced to do what they're doing.
What are the types of trafficking in the world?
I believe in the world, you see a little bit more on the macro scale. For instance, in Thailand, there's mass amounts of men that get forced to work on fishing boats. And then there's massive, what they call red light districts, where there's sex trafficking just in the open. I would say in the US, it's a little more hidden. I think it's a little more hard to find here in the United States.
It's not blatant in your face.
It's not blatant in your face all the time. But part of what we're doing, especially with these video series, is allowing people to understand what to look for. Because it's not blatant in your face, it's hard to detect trafficking sometimes.
Where do we see that? Like, how do we see that in the U.S.? Prostitution, a lot of people just say it's just prostitution.
Right. The phrase "it's just prostitution" oftentimes very, very wrong. In the U.S., a lot of what we see today in the sex trafficking realm is going to be online. There's multiple websites you can literally just click on from your cell phone and find people engaging in prostitution or being forced into trafficking right there in your area. We see a lot of it in massage parlors. The small massage parlors on the street corner, the ones that are open till midnight, there's no massage parlor that should be open until midnight if they're doing legitimate business. Another form that we see on the labor side is a lot of times like your farms. There'll be ads like in the newspapers and in the local communities in parts of Mexico and other parts of the world. And they'll advertise you can come to the US and work for 3 months. You can get a work visa. You can work during harvest season on a farm. You'll be able to make money, send money back home. That's what the ads say at least. Now, when you arrive here, a lot of times their passports are taken, their visas are taken, all their paperwork that identifies who they are is taken away from them. And there's this threat that says if you run or if you try to get away, we'll call the police on you. One thing we know is that a lot of people's perception of the police from other places in the world are very different from the United States. That's very fearful when they start telling them, we'll call the police on you if you try to get away from us.
I think the biggest thing that we see, or more blatant in our face, is prostitution and pimps. So what's the difference between a pimp and a trafficker?
So a pimp and a trafficker is really the same concept. When we hear the word pimp, a lot of times we think about, the guy riding around in the nice car. He's got a suit on, he's got a cane, he's got a hat. And he's got some very attractive girls around him.
Pimping.
Yeah, pimping. The guy riding around pimping. There are people that engage in prostitution that could even work for a pimp and not be a victim of trafficking. Yeah. When we really dive into it, it's how are they in control? Are the girls working for the guy? Is she in control of what she does? Can she keep the money she makes? Can she live the life she wants to live? And if she ever just wants to leave, does she have the ability to do so?
Yeah.
Now, if you start answering no to those questions, you say, no, she can't leave. No, she can't just go be on her own. She can't schedule her own dates. Then we start really seeing that trafficker come out. We start seeing that person that says, you're going to listen to me no matter what. Yeah. Or there's some sort of fear tactic used. Something will happen to you.
Yeah. Well, I know that for a lot of us, we think guys are mainly the traffickers, but I've heard of females being trafficked as well. So
there's a large misconception, I think, that people believe it can only be guys that are pimps, your traffickers. The truth is females are just as capable. What happens a lot of time is there's a trafficker and he'll have a girl, maybe his girlfriend or something is working for him. She becomes what we call the bottom. She's the bottom, but she's the top girl in the rank. So you have the trafficker, and then you have the bottom, and then you have all the other people that work for him. What happens a lot of times is that bottom is the recruiter. She's the one that goes out and she'll tell girls that are in a vulnerable position or guys that are in a vulnerable position, and she'll go to them and say, hey, I know somebody, I work for somebody, we're doing good right now, we're making good money. I've even heard before where the guy is never even seen. It's all the bottom. The bottom is the one that's controlling the entire organization, so to speak. Never think that it can only be a guy trafficking a female. It can be a female trafficking females. It can be a female trafficking males. There's a lot of different dynamics that can happen. When we talk about females being traffickers, so a lot of times they think there's no way a mother could.
Yeah.
There's no way a parent could. But again, going back to where we see trafficking in the United States, it can be as small as within a family. It can be a mom and a dad trafficking a child. It can be a brother, a sister, an aunt, an uncle. It knows no bounds. It's kind of a scary thing. It should put a little fear in us that this could be anybody. Part of learning and part of understanding and learning those dynamics is what's going to bring all these things to light.
What do traffickers look for in victims? There has to be something that they're looking for specifically that they target.
Yeah, so vulnerability, I think, is the number one thing that a trafficker looks for. Let's say there's a young girl and, she's been what we call maybe a throwaway youth. I hate to use that term, but parents have disowned her. They're not around. And now you got this young 15, 16-year-old girl trying to figure out, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
I'm on the street now. There's no one around. And if there's a guy that shows up in even just an okay car, he's got some money, and he says, hey, I see something's wrong. I can help you out a little bit. That's that beginning of that cycle. It started with the family dynamic. It went into this young person is trying to find a home, find family. And then somebody shows up to fill that void. The guy is playing on her vulnerability.
Yeah. When we worked at the Dream Center and helped out there and volunteered there, the predominant issue was homeless youth. And the only way that they could survive is survival sex.
Right.
I mean, you had people coming up to me, I'll feed you, I'll give you a home, but you gotta do this for me.
A lot of times that person could be a trafficker trying to recruit that person.
Yeah.
Or that person could just simply be a what we call it, John, someone that's looking for a girl to have sex with or something like that. They're just playing the vulnerability.
Some of these people are grown women and men. Why are they seen as victims? They can make a decision to walk away.
From the surface, when you first look at her or you first meet her, it may be hard to tell.
Yeah.
Because if that person is voluntarily out there, they keep the money, they control what they do, they work on their own schedule, they are not a victim of trafficking. They are not being trafficked at that point.
Yeah.
Now, they may be a victim to their circumstances. I think what I've seen a lot, and what's a very common tactic, is there's a prostitute that's working by herself.
Yeah.
And then somebody shows up and says, I can grow your business. I can help you. And you can get more dates a day. You can make more money.
Yeah.
Quit having these $50 dates because I can get you $200 dates. Next thing you know, the girl can't get away. She can't leave. She's addicted to a heroin or some sort of drug.
Yeah.
That says you're gonna stay.
A lot of people are like, well, that's just their fault. They made that decision. I mean, in all reality, what's the truth? Is it always the victim's fault or is it always the trafficker's fault?
Well, I think once you've gotten to the point where you're a victim, someone is forcing and controlling you to do something, we can't blame that victim anymore.
Yeah.
They may have chosen a certain lifestyle. Their circumstances may have put them in a position where they didn't know anything else to do. But the moment that someone begins to traffic a person and force them to do something out of force, fraud, or coercion, which is the way the law defines it, the trafficker is now the one at fault. If you start playing their emotions, those vulnerabilities that we talked about, then the trafficker is now in control. We want to go after the person that's in control.
Yeah.
And then assist those that are not in control. Trafficking can literally occur anywhere.
Yeah.
There was a sheriff in a local county in Texas. He said, "There's no trafficking in my county. It doesn't happen here." And somebody I know that he trains people in trafficking. He said, "Well, do you have any hotels?" And he said, "Yeah, we got some hotels." He said, "Well, you have trafficking." And as cliche or even comical that may sound, the truth is trafficking can happen anywhere. It can happen inside of a home. And when we really start to process that in our minds, we realize that, the little boy that showed up to Child Protective Services for just sexual abuse, there may have been a little more.
Yeah.
There may be something else going on. The little girl that showed up to the doctor that was injured, she fell. Okay, she very well may have fell. And I'm not saying
Yeah.
start treating everyone like a trafficking victim.
Yeah.
But what I am saying is we have to open our eyes a little
Mm-hmm.
bit. When we see that female walking down what we would call a track, or
Yeah.
somewhere where prostitution is I'm not going to use the word normalized, but a commonplace.
Mm-hmm.
She may honestly be engaged in prostitution on her own, but she might not be.
Yeah.
And I think it's getting that concept of, but maybe there's more.
Yeah.
And like I said, not everyone's a victim. We shouldn't treat everyone as a victim, but we should always have our eyes open.
Yeah.
If you work in the medical field, if you work in child protective services,
Mm-hmm.
if you're a teacher, if you're a member at a church, just have your eyes open. Maybe ask a couple questions if you're able to, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But always remember that trafficking can happen anywhere. It's not the movie Taken. You know, sometimes it happens. Sometimes there's this large international trafficking.
Rain, yeah.
The truth is, though, is trafficking happens right here in our backyard.
Yeah.
And it's just important to have our eyes open and learn what it looks like.
I think for us, it's just an awareness thing. We need to tell everyone about it.